And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO at Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on the podcast, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Vanessa Errecarte, and I'll tell you a little bit about her because she's really interesting. She's an award-winning lecturer and marketing consultant who created and teaches one of the nation's only 4-credit MBA courses in personal branding, which is kind of cool, at UC Davis Graduate School of Management. She also teaches an array of other popular marketing courses and has been twice named Teacher of the Year. She's a poet and Quan's best and brightest, and she does a lot of other cool stuff, but I'd rather talk to her than tell you about her. So welcome aboard today, Vanessa. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I am good. So wait, I buried the lead. So we've got a new book out, which is Valuable and Visible. So I buried
Oh,
the lead
right.
there a little bit. So give me a sense of how did we get here? How did all this happen? Because it seems like one of those interesting, not necessarily linear roads.
Right. It wasn't. So when I started teaching at the UC Davis Graduate School of Management, I was asked to teach digital marketing and corporate branding. And so I taught that for a few years. I still do. And then I started realizing, and this was before AI, a tidge before AI, but pandemic time, how hard students had to work to stand out and find jobs. And this is like the
Yeah.
story of the market right now, right? But we were starting to see it then. And if you make it to the UC Davis Graduate School of Management, you are exceptional. I
Yep.
mean, it's a top tier school and you're really a talented human with quite a lot of neat, wonderful standout experience, right?
Well, let me ask you a question on that, though. The ability to stand out has gotten increasingly more difficult. Was that moment in time, sort of that COVID, post COVID, do you think some of it was attributable to the loss of the FaceTime and now shifting to being recruited and interviewed on Zoom, or not really?
It may have been. I think so.
Okay.
Your guess is really as good as mine on that. But I just kind of realized that it just seemed like there was this toil. In fact, I'll tell you why. And I do think
Okay.
loss of FaceTime is part of it because I think recreating that FaceTime in another way is how a lot of students successfully replace that these days. But we'll get
Hmm.
there in a moment. So, what kind of got me thinking in particular is a star student in my corporate branding class. Like if she was struggling, everybody is struggling, right?
Right.
And so I
Right.
said, let's work on your personal brand. And I could kind of see her shoulders go up and she's cringing. And I cringe too. Like, I don't love the term personal brand, but I lean into it because I want to change it. And I said, but what if I said your personal brand's not about you? What if your personal brand is intriguing people with what you know? And this is where I think we put the word personal in front of brand and we get cuckoo because
So stay there a minute
brands.
because I
Yeah.
love this. So I'm old enough to vividly remember, I don't remember the year because I'm that old, but like 96, 97, when a copy of Fast Company magazine, if you're under 40, Google magazine, there were these
Yep.
tablets, right? And it was a brand you. It was, brand you,
Yeah.
Tom Peters, and it looked like the Tide logo and all that stuff. And it started like a movement, like, and this was
Right.
pre-social media, right? There was internet, but it was not. So the whole personal branding thing exploded. And the takeaway
Yes.
from it was you got to do something to stand out because being smart, like you're saying, all these kids at the school, they're smart. Like you didn't get there by being a dope. That's not enough anymore. And I
Yeah.
clearly remember second point of the story is about 5 years ago, I was lucky enough to be able to interview Tom Peters on this show. And I
Yep.
wanted to sort of get his
Cool.
take. And I said, hey, Tom, I remember this personal branding thing. And I said, and the way a lot of people interpreted that at that moment in time is, okay, well, if I'm a smart analyst, first year lawyer, whatever, and all my colleagues are just as smart, just do something. So wear a purple bow tie or bring cinnamon coffee buns to every meeting or don't wear socks. And people would remember you for that. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I actually think thought leadership is a better way to describe what personal branding is, could be, and should be for someone today.
Yes. Yes. And you do such a brilliant job, which I'm
Thank
so
you.
honored to be here, by the way, when you talk and teach about thought leadership, right? And so I think though that we can become thought leaders. If we know something, we can become a thought leader, but we
Yes.
don't always realize it. And so when I talk to students, I think sometimes there's this feeling, and I don't think this feeling goes away ever for some people, but until a lot later for many of, well, I need this one more degree. I need these 3 more years of experience or whatever it is I need before I become a thought leader, right? But let's think about the
Hmm.
corporate brand, right? And let's think about Disney.
Right.
And Disney started as a mouse and an idea. And Disney
Yes.
didn't wait. And Disney didn't talk about who is Walt Disney. Disney talked about the story of this mouse and an idea, because that mouse and an
Correct.
idea brought comfort and happiness and magic to a lot of children and families. And so, in a way, you never have to know who Walt Disney is or what his qualifications are because he had such a cool little mouse.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when we're feeling hesitant, and sometimes I think the people that are the most hesitant have the most to share because they're wondering if it's good enough, which is a signal right there, as you know. But what is it
But
that
there, but
that
there's also, but there's also a catch 22. There is a
Mhm.
point in time in your career where, I mean, there are other times in your life where it may be imposter syndrome or insecurity, or talk to your therapist and figure that out. And we're all still
Yeah,
wrestling with that. But then there's
yeah,
another time where, hey, I'm only whatever, a year out of school, and I'm in this place. I'm at Accenture or McKinsey, like one of these intimidating
yeah,
Google, fill in the blank. And there's people here, like I've always been the smartest in the room, and now I'm not. And I'm
yeah.
surrounded by greatness and brilliance and whatever. So I probably should feel a little insecure. And what I've seen really, really smart people do in that instance is say, hey, you know what? I might not be the expert that's got the 10 years in the thing, whatever the thing is, but I know that, like right now, everybody's interested in something AI, maybe you could be the one that just asks the question out loud to others and comes back to the organization, the team, whatever, and said, "Hey, I'm not telling you to listen to me, but I went and talked to 5 people in this field, and here's what I curated." So I think it depends on how you're defining thought leadership. Some of it is original, and some of it could be curation. Does that make sense?
I love that you said that because I actually think that we have a huge misconception out there about thought leadership. We all think it's a magic thing that these smart, distinctive people have, but we can learn it. And that's what I started thinking about is I teach this rigorous corporate branding class. Why not apply that to the personal brand for these students?
Right.
Right. Because when that student did, she found a job within a few months that she really wanted. And the thing that I think a lot of people miss that you just alluded to is this idea that thought leadership means you're a genius. Actually, thought leadership means you think. Thought leadership means you're memorable. Thought leadership means you ask the right questions, right? And so I always tell students in my book, I have many case studies, but they're all normal
Sure.
people, but varying levels of experience because
Sure.
a lot of my students have varying levels of experience. You have executive MBA programs, you have full time people going right in, you have masters of management going right in, you have kind of mid career working professional programs. So I have like doctors to people
Hmm.
with no experience. And so I'll tell you about Carter for a second because Carter's intriguing in this way because Carter uses that thought part of it because Carter went straight into a master's of management degree.
Okay.
And so when Carter was in a workshop with me, he's saying like, okay, but I don't have work experience yet. But Carter was he was in the Master of Management program because he had a fifth year of NCAA eligibility for playing Division One baseball. And he's a
Okay.
pitcher, a very good pitcher. He was recruited
Okay.
to UC Davis to be the pitcher. And so he said, I just what do I even talk about, right? And so he actually it wasn't quite like that because I could see the gears definitely turning.
Sure.
And so I knew I could put him on the spot and I said, "Well, what do you know?" And he
Yeah.
said, "Well, I mean, I do think that I know how to help people stop overthinking things." And I'm like, "How do you know that?" And he said,
Right.
"Well, there's a time when, I volunteer, I've coached at Little League, and there's a time when a lot of
Yes.
people quit." And my son had actually that season taken the spring off Little League because he was feeling self conscious. And so I'm like, continue.
Uh-huh.
And he said, well, whenever we teach kids to pitch, you have this coach, usually a dad, standing
Yes.
there on the mound next to the kid, and every little thing they do with their little arm is being coached. And he said, what I like to do and how I learned to pitch best is I like to stand next to the child and just show them where the strike zone is and tell them throw as many balls as you can right in that area. And then I have them start throwing them. And the first time they make a strike, I say, stop for a second and explain to me what you did. And then
Okay.
I praise them
Huh.
and I ask them to remember that. And I don't ask them to do
Right.
it again.
I love it.
I just say, okay, keep throwing. And then I stop him the next time. And he said, within 20 minutes, by the fourth time they've thrown a strike, something like that, they've taught themselves how to pitch strikes. And he said, couldn't we do that in business meetings? Don't you think? Don't you think if we observed other people's styles, we could all work in a way that's more comfortably for us and have more natural ideas, and all of these pitches and meetings would be more effective? And I'm like, well, Carter, I want more of you, right? And in this world of AI, those people that can think in different ways, and we have frameworks to tease this out, right? Because Carter was following a
Yes.
framework
Right.
that I was giving to him to step by step think about what are things and then what's the real problem that people don't get and how do you do it different, right? We can take these steps and hammer out these
Right.
ideas. It's not magic, but when it
And
comes out, when you
and
actually
I
stumble on it,
yeah.
then it's pretty
No, and
cool,
I
right?
I
It's a
just wanna
cool
go
moment when
back.
you realize, "Oh, I can do it too."
So I mean, to me, that really speaks to, from a thought leadership perspective, the power of frameworks, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
if Carter was a pitcher that could throw a fastball faster than anybody else, and he got up there and threw a 100-mile-per-hour ball and handed it to me and said, "Just do what I did," I'd be like, "Well, I can't do that. I don't have the physical capabilities to do that." Now, if the promise to me is I can help teach you to throw a ball as fast as you are capable of, and I'm going to break that down into steps that you can follow, even if I only get to, half of what he's capable of, at least I have a framework to follow. And people find comfort in that. A great idea is only the beginning. In the Thought Leadership Handbook, Bill Sherman, Naren Ariel, and I share what it takes to shape, package, and scale your expertise in a crowded market. It's available now. Learn more at thoughtleadershiphandbook.com and order it today at Amazon, B&N, Bookshop, or Amplify. I want to segue for a moment into sort of you're an academic, that's what you do. What are the doors that have opened, or possibilities or opportunities that have opened for you now that, and this is a little bit meta, you're sort of in the thought leadership world, if you will. And I called you a thought leader, you didn't. So that's a key distinction.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I think that the doors that open are sometimes doors you don't expect. So
Yeah.
going back to the moment where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to turn this into a class because the
Yep.
student said, geez, you should turn this into a class, right? I actually never imagined myself teaching personal branding. Like, the term makes used to make me cringe as well. Like I said, I'm trying to change the
Yeah.
definition,
Yes.
but I realized how important it was. And so stepping into that, like, I guess for me, because I've had a consulting business for a really long
Yes.
time in digital and corporate marketing, et cetera, I never imagined becoming kind of this personal branding person. But with AI changing
Sure.
the economy and, I don't think destroying jobs, but definitely shrinking jobs, I think we all have to become kind of our own mini consultants. I think that big full-time
Yeah.
role is more of the rarity, and that, piece together type existence. The gig economy is the economy, right? And so, that's the unexpected path, right? So going into academia, like after being in industry and now having a foot in both, that academia, like, you think a lot, right? And you need to be on the front end of anything new
Yes.
happening, or else, like, why are you there? And so being on the front end of kind of this new wave of how should we do personal branding, redefining it, whatnot. I never expected that, but I enjoy that door so much because you know this better than anyone else and you embody this. In the back half of my career that I'm embarking on, this is now my love and my goal. I want
Yeah.
people to realize as soon as possible that they have a spot on the internet too, because we do spend more time online than anywhere
Yes.
else.
Yep.
And we don't make a plan for that. When you think of your week on Sunday or however you manage your time, you're thinking of where you need to be and who you need to talk to. And the vast majority of us aren't really planning where the online network comes into that. And so what I want
Right. And
people to do is, yeah, take an
no,
hour
I'm
to 3 hours a week and plan that out in a very systematic way, not in that influencer way that I think has hijacked the definition of personal branding. That's a job. You are putting
Well, when
out
people
things.
say, I could hear it all right. Oh, but I don't have time. I don't have time. And I
Yeah.
guarantee you, 999 people out of 1,000, if I actually looked at how they spent their time versus what they said, I'm like, I could find you 3 hours a week where you're scrolling TikTok or, binging Netflix
Yeah.
or whatever, that you could reallocate strategically, deliberately, in a focused way to get you a better outcome. And in terms of the
Yeah.
the ROI, people forget that one of the reasons one invests in a personal brand or any brand, but particularly a personal brand, is it's transportable. The fact is you're
Yes.
probably not going to be at your first job for 20 years. You might not be
Yeah.
there for 2 years, but a lot of the stuff that you do from a thought leadership, from a content perspective, goes with you, asterisk, check your attorney and make sure you're not stealing anybody's IP, whatever. But like you become known for like, hey, I saw your stuff on LinkedIn, or tell me about that time you interviewed 5 senior executives at your firm. That sounded like a gutsy, like that becomes part of you to go to the next place. And I can guarantee you that all things being equal, that's more than a tiebreaker, right? If I'm looking to hire someone with X years of experience from an Ivy League school that's got this and this, and
Mhm.
you know, you've got that and the others don't, that's a win. That's going to get you across the finish line.
Yeah. Do you also think it's a lab? I always tell my students and clients, I think that view this 1 to 3 hours a week because I purposely wrote the class, thus the
Yep,
book, and you need to be able to actually do this, or what's the point? And I said, view it as a lab because if
100%.
you can
Yeah,
get good online at, hey, in the past when I've done R&D for like a particular product, like I take these same 4 steps that most people do, but
sure.
here's how I do step 2 differently. And this is the outcome when I do step 2 differently. And so if you want to try doing step 2 differently and you're a product manager, here's 3 steps put it in a framework that you can take to do step 2 differently, right? And if you can get in that habit of, again, being a little contrary, finding the real problem, your
Yeah.
better solution, and talking about it,
So
then you start becoming that person in real life too, you know?
So I'll tell you that the lab doesn't stop when you're a student. I work with a lot of clients and
Yeah.
they're known for X, right? And when they produce something, it's top notch. The research is there, it's validated, the book is like blah, blah, blah. Right. And then they're coming up with a new idea. And they're like, I can't talk about it until it's locked and loaded. I'm like, that's wrong. As long as you put the disclaimer out there and say, hey,
Yeah.
let's say like your book, you wrote a book, I read it, it's a great book. So if you were thinking about something else and said, hey, here's something I've been thinking about lately, and in the spirit of that, here's a couple ideas I have, versus saying, this is finished product. I spent 5 years on it
Right.
and it is what it is. If you tell me, like, let me get under the hood and almost say, hey, I know the recipe's probably not right yet and it might be a little too salty or spicy or whatever, but I want to share with you what I've got and I want you to tell me because it's great market validation, right? Because it's easier. I'd rather put out a LinkedIn post that's a bomb than spend 2 years of my life writing a book that nobody cares about. So I think
Yes.
the world is a lab. I love that thought.
And
Last,
if your audience is small, if your
yeah,
audience is small to start, that's a perfect lab because your mom and your best friend, they're going to kindly tell you that that sucks. And
yeah,
they're going to kindly tell you what's good.
yeah,
And then you can do more of it, right? And as your audience builds, so does your ability.
yep, and your confidence. As we wind down here, give me a tip that you would give to you 5 or 6 years ago when you were a little bit earlier in
Start.
the.
Yeah. Yeah. I This is my biggest tip ever. Start sooner. I wish I'd started my business sooner. I wish I'd everything I've done in life, I wish I'd started sooner. And so I tell people use hesitancy as a signal because when you have a new idea, a new way of doing something, like I definitely have a different approach to the marketing funnel for my clients. And,
Right.
definitely this new approach to personal branding is a little different. When I say everyone says personal branding is about you, everyone's wrong, right? And so it's scary because you are doing and saying things that people haven't said before. And that's
Right.
purposely how we teach people to form thought leadership frameworks, right? Is to be a little contrary. Take that as a signal. I mean, I grew up playing the Oregon Trail, right? Like the oxen
Yeah.
died when they were pioneer, right? We had to try and
Huh.
and being a pioneer is scary and unknown. And so instead of imposter syndrome and hesitancy, take that as a signal because there is a time, and you know this so well, that time in someone's career when it goes from being so good at the skill, which AI is slowly making this
Sure.
moment come sooner, you go from being great at the skill and a little greater than everyone else to get, all your promotions. And then you have to be great at the thought because you're a leader. And so, did you see the New York Times when they were writing about John Turnus and him being favored for the next CEO of Apple?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
there's this sentence in there, and it said, now Apple needs to choose if they want another deft manager or an innovator. And you and I know that deft managers are great. Like the term doesn't sound great, but they do keep the company going well, right?
No, and the wheels on the bus stay and, the planes take off on
Exactly. Yeah.
time and the toilet paper gets shit. Like, we
Yeah.
need that. Bless their
We
little
need
hearts.
that.
But
And
yeah.
so it's not a bad thing, but he's both if he's around
Yeah.
50 and being considered for the CEO. But he just was never told by anyone that he could become distinctive, and that there would be formulas to do it. And so I always tell people, gosh, you don't know when that moment is that the New York Times might write that sentence about you,
Huh.
per se, right? But be ready for it because they're going to
Exactly.
find it no matter what. So
No, this has
start
been
start
great.
sooner.
Great stuff. I appreciate your time and your coming on board and sharing a bunch of wisdom with us today, Vanessa. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and all the wisdom you share with us. I can't wait for your new book.
Thank you. To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.